Okay, well, this video is a long time coming. We're going to talk about endurance. It's personally what I like to train for. It helps dictate all my goals, both in training goals and in adventures. And I'm going to talk about how to increase your endurance today. But before we get into the technicalities of it all, I want to really talk about what endurance actually is. A lot of times we tend to think of just how long can a person, function before breakdown. And while that's not entirely untrue, it's not quite the way you want to think about it. So think about a sprint for a second, which is a short burst of energy by definition. It's not a long distance. People don't typically think about endurance when they think about sprints. So normally with a sprint, if you were to map out their speed, there's kind of a U curve to it. They come off the start line as fast as possible, and then at some point they slow down just a little bit, and then as they get to the end, there's that last minute burst of energy that we kind of unlock to kind of make it across the finish line. How long it takes before the U starts, that's your endurance. So some people are really good at, even these short bursts of energy, which are supposed to be all out, are really good at not slowing down and just kind of suffering longer. And the longer you can suffer, that's your endurance. Now, if you're thinking about a marathon, it's the exact same equation. You're looking for how much energy you want to expend on the higher end of your performance to make it to the end goal, whether that's, 400 meters or 400 miles. It really doesn't matter, but it's how long you're able to kind of maintain a higher level of output before you start to kind of break down. So that's out of the way. Now we know what endurance is. It could take a lot of forms, swimming, running, bicycling. Personally, I have just gotten into mountaineering, legit mountaineering. So I'm a long-time hiker. I like carrying weight with me, and now I'm trying to go higher and higher altitudes. And that's a different type of endurance. And that type of endurance plays out well for people who like to go walking or running long distances, with weight on their back, or doing events, similar to like a Go Ruck or a Hurricane Heat. If you know what those are, you understand what I'm trying to say, what I'm trying to get across. So there's three aspects you want to think about when it comes to your endurance: muscular endurance, cardiac endurance, and your mental/emotional endurance, which you could just call grit. Your muscular endurance is how much actual physical effort can a muscle group do before it comes to failure. So you want to think about that. How can you increase your muscular endurance? Cardiac endurance. How much oxygen can your blood efficiently pump? Can your heart efficiently pump through your blood and your heart rate maintain at a performance level before it just bonks out? So I think most people understand what cardio is. But that oxygen to effort ratio matters, right? And then mental and emotional grit is pretty much what it sounds like. It's, man, this sucks, do I keep doing it? But it's also discipline. So it's, I don't feel like training today, fuck it, I'm doing it anyway. So those three aspects all play into how to increase your endurance. So we're going to focus on these one at a time and break down what you can do to kind of make sure all three of these aspects kind of come together. Okay, so muscular endurance. We'll zero in on that first. Generally speaking, you want to focus on big functional patterns. Is a cliche word. I say it all the time, but lying down in a leg press machine, pushing away, is not the same as stepping upstairs. There are more muscle groups than just the isolated quads or the hamstrings involved in those motions. So, for example, when it comes to carrying heavy weights for long distance, cutting out half your body isn't necessarily the best idea. So you want to think about those big patterns, where you're kind of mimicking what you plan to be doing. And yes, you want to do the thing that you're training for. So if you want to go hiking long distances with weight on your back, you will want to do that. But that should not be the entirety of your training. You want to build up the musculature in your body so you can expend it, so to speak, when you're out there doing it. So you'll build the skill when you're out there, but there should be something of a training lab where you're working on some big functional patterns. Squats, deadlifts, these are probably two of the best exercises when it comes to getting, big compound muscle groups together at once. Stepping up on the box with maybe some weight in your hands, just a lot of functional patterns of that nature. Now, we want to talk about the endurance of the muscle as well. So the reason why I mentioned the squat is that's actually a big part of the arsenal. You want to think about maybe doing 3 sets of 20 reps, and you don't want to do the most weight you can. So a little bit of homework for you. Go calculate your 1 rep max. There's a ton of tools you can find online for this. Just do a Google search. It'll tell you how to learn this. You should already be working out, and I'll write this in my post for the video, but you shouldn't start working out doing something like this. Once you're already in shape, in general fitness level, then you can start thinking about specializing. Then you want to think about getting your 1 rep max, right? So calculate what your 1 rep max should be, and then 70% of that weight should be the weight that you're using for your endurance. So if you're doing 3 sets of 20, your heart rate's going to go through the ceiling, but you're really just wearing out those muscles, and you're teaching them to give a response to function for longer periods of time at a lighter input. This will translate to more strength down the line. Not power, not single rep lifting, but if you're walking for a long period of time with weight on your back and you've trained all your core muscles to maintain function for long periods of times, that's going to help you. So muscular fitness, for muscular endurance, lower weight, higher reps. Typically around 20 reps at around 70 to 75% of your maximum capacity. How you feel on any given day could kind of shift that number around, but that's kind of your goal when it comes to muscular endurance. Side note about muscular endurance. While that's pretty straightforward, I could just get some light deadlifting in, 20 reps, 3 sets, boom, and I'm good, and just kind of do this every week. Sure. But ego is something we always have to fight. It's actually 70% of your max, especially if you're a strong person and proud. It can be almost embarrassing putting really light weight on there, right? If you can, deadlift 400 pounds, you don't want to slap on 135 and just kind of knock out a bunch of that because it doesn't seem like much, and it won't feel like much at first either. It's really light effort when you start. It's not until you're reaching rep 10 of set 2 that you're starting to feel some sort of fatigue. But you have to get through that. It's not about how much weight can I lift right now. It's about how can I conserve my energy so I can do this for longer periods of time. So while it's pretty simple to get the numbers down, you have to remember, you have to fight your own ego. You have to maintain proper form, which we're not going to go over today. There are plenty of videos. I've done a few for the big lifts. But you want to make sure that your form doesn't suffer. You can do the exercise correctly for long periods of time. And as you get stronger, you can slowly start to raise that weight. But by definition, is always going to be about 70% of what you can actually do. But that's the point. Discipline plays a big role. Okay, cardiac. So cardio is probably one of the more misunderstood. I don't know. You come up with a better term. But cardio. First things first, if you notice when it comes to muscular endurance, I told you have to figure out your 1 rep max. With cardio, you want to figure out a couple of things. Your resting heart rate, your maximum heart rate, your heart rate reserve. And with this information, you can then look at your heart rate zones and figure out where you want to be. What does all that mean? First off, get a heart rate monitor. They're not expensive. I know a lot of wearables. I've had a lot of clients that have them. They tend to be inaccurate. You're never going to find one that's perfect. The most accurate ones are the ones with the chest strap. Personally, got one of these guys that I use a lot. It's a little medical pulse oximeter. This guy's like $15. They use these in hospitals. You just kind of clip it on your finger, push the button, and then you eventually get a reading. No, my heart rate's not 203 yet. Yeah, that's right, you're watching this. It's not going to do it now. There you go. So I'm at like 95. I'm not relaxed. I just worked out, so chill. But you want to know what your resting heart rate is. So for 3 days straight, when you wake up, before you even stand out of bed, take your heart rate, make a note. After 3 days, get an average. Your max heart rate. It's a lot of different ways to do it. There's the old 220 minus your age way, which is really general. If you're really fit, that's really not good for you. Another great way to kind of learn out your max heart rate, go to a track, go to something repeatedly, put a heart rate monitor on that records you the whole time, and just fucking go. You could do it on a treadmill as well, and just maximum output for like a mile, right? So warm up a bit, get in there, really try and push yourself, and make note of what the highest your heart goes. That's your max heart rate. Heart rate reserve is a formula. Look it up, right? So just do a Google search. This isn't about how to get your heart rate reserve. Look it up. Put in the information, and then you'll see heart rate zones. So you've got your low-end heart rate zone, which is just active recovery. You've got your fat burning zones around there too. You get your endurance zone, which is usually between like 75 to 85% of your maximum heart rate after you've calculated your heart rate reserve. And then you've got your athletic training, which is, how your spurts of energy, and then just your red line, like how high can you go without passing out, So a lot of this is determined by how well your heart pumps oxygen throughout your blood. The better you are at being, oxygen rich, the more you're going to be able to perform. Altitude plays a big role in this. You want to focus on being well hydrated. You want to think about, eating well, getting those antioxidants and vitamins in. If you smoke, stop. No shit, right? But stop. Alcohol, that helps constrict blood vessels. You want to be as free and clear as possible. So the more oxygen your blood can pass to your muscles, the better you're going to be. The more efficient you're going to be, the further you're going to be. I don't care if you're like, I just did, 40 miles and it felt like nothing. If you smoke, you could be better. No matter what, you can still improve it. But you need to do a little bit of focusing on that. Now, as for frequency, now I kind of touched with muscular, once a week for the big motions. Sure. Like personally, I'll do squatting and rack pulls and like all the big lifts one time a week. When it comes to cardiovascular training, when it comes to endurance, one long endurance day. So there's going to be a day, for me, it's just weight on back, uphill, and track your heart rate. You want to make sure you get into the endurance zone. If you're going too high, you're not increasing your general ability to endure. So you really want to find the right difficulty level for maintaining. For me, is around 153, right? So maintaining that beats per minute window that you've customized for yourself is not just about always hitting the highest max and then recovering. There's a place for that. Interval training works well for that. Sprints, 30 on, 30 offs, Tabatas, whatever you can do to spike those heart rate. But you want to make sure that you're kind of getting into the athletic zone and not just redlining. With those days, about 2 times a week. The other 2 days are endurance days. So that you want to alternate between the two, but really make sure you're tracking your heart rate. Because again, especially on those endurance days, if you're going on a long 40-minute, 2-hour long hike and you're going to be in your endurance zone, but if you're going too high into athletics, you're not doing what you want to do, and you'll notice that you kind of plateau for a while, and that's your reason. So 4 times a week, you want to focus on that cardio. It can work side by side on your muscular days, clearly. Personally, I layer them in. So I have muscular endurance on one day with intervals afterwards. My long-term endurance heart rate day is just my long-term endurance heart rate day. That's all I'm working on. Because that's what I'm focusing on. You want to make sure you're maintaining it there. If it's going into the athletic zone, slow down. Bring the heart rate down. If it's not high enough, speed up. It will kind of suck. And that's kind of the purpose. It kind of gets into this uncomfortable zone, but you get more and more used to it. And once you've adapted, though, that heart rate's going to get lower. You're going to have to start pushing higher and getting a little bit uncomfortable again. That endurance zone, that's where you start to get into the third aspect of all of this, and that's probably the most important of all of it. And yeah, that's grit. Just fucking do it, right? I mean, here's where things get. This is where some of the biggest differentiators are amongst people. If you took twins and gave them the exact same training modality, over the course of whatever, years, training them for a specific thing, let's say a sprint, come that day where they actually go to perform, you're very likely going to have one beating the other. What's the difference, right? Who wanted it more? Who is just willing to put the little bit more in there? Who is willing to really dig into their soul and pull it out? So with grit, with endurance, mental endurance, there's two specific traits that you really want to focus on with this. One is good old-fashioned boring discipline. I've talked about it in plenty of my other videos. Feel free to listen to me babble on there. But just to have the mental fortitude to day after day do the thing, do the program for you. Go be uncomfortable with your endurance day, rest. And, this is a big one, the rest days. Fucking rest. You're having to discipline to be like, today I have 5-6 days of work under my belt and my body needs to recover. I'm going to sit there and recover. Don't go on the Facebook like, oh, hey, cool, man, it's my rest day. I did like 4 miles with 50 pounds on my back because, active rest. I'm so extreme. No, you're not. You're stupid. Discipline. When is rest? Rest. If you find it hard to get sleep, find a way to get your sleep. You need to heal. Your cells are breaking up. Your muscles are tearing as you're training over the course of the week. Your body is being degraded, being torn apart, and you need to build it back. Your cells need to come together. You need to hydrate a bunch so they can do it. And then you need to sleep a bunch. So while you're asleep, your body comes up and then you feel fantastic and you can keep going. If your goal in life is just to crash after 2 weeks of training and post about it on Facebook, go for it. But that's not what we're talking about. We're talking about legitimately getting better at a thing. So discipline, doing the program as is to the best of your knowledge. Make adjustments if you need to. If you're injured, heal, right? But keeping at it and resting, knowing when not to push is a huge part of this. This is all about efficiency of energy. So discipline, out of the way. Moment to moment, I want to stop. So endurance doesn't really begin until you have the thought, shit, I don't want to do this. Now you're into endurance, mind endurance mode. How do you get over that? Well, first you have to really want the thing that you're going for. That's a personal thing, isn't it? Right? And no one goal is any better than another. If your whole goal is I want a cookie, a medal, I just want people to think I'm cool on Facebook, and that means enough to you, then that's a good enough goal. If you want to achieve something that few people have, tougher goal, but again, as long as you want it. But you have to really want it. You have to be honest with yourself as to why you're doing the thing that you're doing. And then reminding yourself that, and that's a cliche. You want to be able to keep focus on the reason why you're doing it. Once you've kept focus, you want to distract yourself in little ways. They did a lot of studies about, positivity versus negativity. The more negative thoughts you have during the event, whatever the event is, the more likely you are to break down. So if you start thinking, I'm tired, you're sending messages to your body to kind of slowly slow down. You start to feel it more. You start to feel more exhausted. If you frown, so a lot of times you'll see people as they're getting, tired, they're rucking along and they're just, Fix your face. It sounds really stupid, but if you just put a smile, even a grimace, just on your face as you go, you're going to start to follow that path. This isn't just me talking. Feel free to research anything I've said here. Don't just take me at my word, right? But there are repeated studies that even just flashing so quickly that you can barely even make it out, frowning faces and smiling faces while people were doing an endurance activity, while like on a bike or on a treadmill, the people that were subconsciously seeing frowning faces were doing around 15% worse than the people that were seeing subconscious smiling faces. We're that affected by positivity and negativity, you know? And at the very end of it, what does it fucking hurt to simply force a smile on your face? If you're smile. If you're really wondering why, like, oh man, I'm suffering, this is miserable, why am I doing this? Don't forget why, you know? I want to make it to the summit of this mountain. I want to go this distance. I want to be the best cyclist. I want to win this swimming event. Whatever it is, keep it in mind and don't forget it. Smile and have positive thoughts. Breathe. It's okay to feel pain. You're going to feel pain. It's going to really fucking hurt. Endurance is managing suffering. And unless you genuinely want to be able to manage suffering, really face what it means to feel this misery and come out the other side, you're not going to make it if you don't really want that, right? So I'm rambling. I do that. Big deal. You didn't pay for this. Think about it. So really think about just smiling a bunch. Really think about remembering why you're doing it and just observing the pain in the moment, but don't just think, ow, 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 ow. More kind of just breathe through it, accept that you're hurting, remember that you have a purpose, and just keep going. You know, at the end of the day, just fucking do it, right? So, I mean, believe me, you can go read books about this. I've made a post about good books to read to think about mental endurance. I highly recommend, if you're seeing this, if you're watching this video, click on my link, look through the post. There's one about books. You know, go read some of that. You'll learn a lot of impressive stuff about what it takes for the mind to do long distance endurance. And, you know, I think that kind of brings it to an end. Not quite. Going back to cardio real quick, breathing techniques. Now we're getting down to nitty gritty on this one, but breathing techniques help a lot. If you're really disciplined and you're kind of on point with this, why not, right? So you want to increase your capacity of breathing. The better you get at that, the more oxygen, the better. I do two types. You'll want to sit there and work on diaphragm breathing, so filling your belly up and then slowly exhaling. You want it to be a slow inhale of 10 seconds, a slow exhale of 10 seconds. I do personally 3 rounds, 3 sets. I do 3 breaths for 3 sets. Then also lungs, expanding the lungs. You know, they get tight too. They get muscles. They get kind of contracted. You know, opening up your chest helps too. So I'll kind of arch it back and breathe up. Fill the lungs up. Hold it. Slowly exhale. Same reps. I do this every day, just about 4 or 5 times minimally. You'll feel a difference over time. It's one of those smaller things, you know, that I feel gets overlooked a lot, but will pay out dividends if you do it. And like I say all the time, hydrate like a motherfucker. You know, don't withhold your water intake. You can drink more than you need. You find you're peeing 5 or 5 minutes, keep going. It will normalize. If you're still peeing too much, bring your water back just a little bit. Find that right target for you. Generally speaking, a gallon a day is kind of where most people should be. And if you're training for endurance, you're almost never going to drink too much water. You're always expending water. Nutrition. Here's where it gets weird. It's all weird, right? But nutrition can be weird for people. People swear by certain types of eating. You know, I feel like that comes down to the hardcore wish that there just is a way to unlock something that we don't have, right? Like, oh man, if I just do this one little thing, I'll get a little better. There's no real secrets though, you know? You drink a lot of water. You want to eat a good combination of carbs, fats, and proteins. If you're doing endurance training, you want it to be more carbs than fats and proteins. Yeah, fats burn for a longer period of time. I know a lot of people love the keto diet. But like I said, if it works for you, it works for you. Keep doing it. If you are currently following a meal plan and you are seeing progress in your goals, don't change it. And if you reach a plateau and you're suddenly not able to break that, start looking at your training plan. What can you change? What can you adjust? You know, retest all your maxes. Find out if your heart rate max has changed, if your 1 rep max has changed. Has your mind changed? You know, do you still want the thing you wanted? And then think about your nutrition. Maybe it's time to try something different. But generally speaking, you know, the body needs carbs, fats, and proteins to function. I mean, hell, if you look at the military, they don't feed you fats. They feed you carbs, tons of carbs. But you're also not getting bigger. You're just being able to go for longer periods of time. But that could be a whole separate video on its own. But clearly, if you constantly drink alcohol, if you eat mostly junk food, if you drink a lot of soda, you don't want it. You don't want the goals you want. The things you say you're training for aren't really big motivators. Honestly, this video isn't for you. If that's where you're at, this is for the person that has already made a commitment and is trying to find the best possible way to achieve that goal. And all the basic stuff like eating like shit, that's already gone. Yep. So I think that's it. I'm just going to stitch these videos together and hopefully that helps somebody. If you have any questions, if you want to talk about different modalities of training, if you want to become a client, feel free, reach out to me. Send me a message here on Nephilim Fitness. Make a comment there. I'll reach out to you. I'm fairly easy to get a hold of. But I think that's it for today. So, peace.